to mend and defend, to defend my newfound friends, their hopes and dreams.
Way to go! Get him, Enzo!
You know the scene. Enzo steps into the GameCube, it crashes, and for the first time in the entire show, he loses. And not just loses the game, he vanishes. Gone. No resolution, no happy ending, just glitching silence and an empty space where a main character used to be. If you were a kid watching ReBoot in the 90s, this wasn't just shocking, it was traumatizing. Because up until that moment, ReBoot was weird and exciting, but still kinda goofy. And then suddenly, the show sucker punched you with the idea that the hero could lose and never be the same again. This is a story of Game Over, the episode that broke a generation. And if you want to relive this digital nightmare, I dropped the DVD link in the description. Let's break down how this one episode shattered every rule of Saturday morning TV and why we never fully recovered from it.
Oh no! We better call Bob! He's the only one that can handle this!
How did a goofy, oversized-eyed sprite become a symbol of childhood trauma? Enzo Matrix wasn't supposed to be a tragic character. He was designed to be the fun, relatable, energetic little brother of ReBoot. Wide-eyed and full of excitement, he bounced around mainframe with innocent curiosity. He wore a green baseball cap backwards, shouted catchphrases like alphanumeric, and idolized Bob, the cool, confident guardian tasked with protecting their digital world. Enzo represented us, the viewers. We weren't guardians, we weren't warriors, we were kids who liked games and wanted to tag along on adventures without real danger. And that's exactly what Enzo gave us: safety, silliness, and secondhand bravery. But beneath the charm was something fragile, something vulnerable. And when things started to go wrong in mainframe, ReBoot didn't shield him from it. In fact, it threw him right into the storm. When Bob was violently ejected into the web and presumed deleted, the digital city panicked. Leadership collapsed. And guess who was next in line? Little Enzo. In an act that felt equal parts inspiring and horrifying, the system promoted Enzo to Guardian. Not because he was ready, not because he was trained, but because there was no one else. He was given Bob's key tool, his badge, his responsibility, his impossible burden. Think about that for a moment. A child, suddenly expected to be the last line of defense against corrupted viruses, invading GameCubes, and total system failure. It's like putting an 8-year-old in charge of the Pentagon during a nuclear crisis. The next few episodes became a ticking time bomb. Enzo's confidence began to crack, his voice wavered, his plans got riskier, and the enemies, they weren't going easy on him. Each game became more intense. The users were merciless, the viruses, like Megabyte and Hexadecimal, grew bolder, and worst of all, everyone still treated Enzo like a kid. Even Andrela, his coolest friend and eventual love interest, would give him those nervous glances, the kind you give someone you care about, when you know they're in a way over their head. And then came Game Over, the moment everything finally snapped. Because this wasn't just another level, this was the level, the one where the gloves came off. The one where ReBoot stopped being cute. And the question wasn't, can Enzo win this one? It was, what happens when he doesn't?
Anyway, Andrea and I can take on any user.
Okay, go. But be careful.
I know.
What happens when a children's cartoon lets its hero fail completely, publicly, and with no one left to save him? Game Over wasn't just another episode in the ReBoot saga. It was a total breakdown of the show's structure, tone, and emotional safety net. And for the kids watching in real time, it felt like witnessing a car crash in slow motion, with your favorite character trapped inside. From the very beginning, something feels off. Enzo, Andrela, the Frisket, they all enter a new game. The cue slams down hard, louder than usual. The music is ominous, the color palette is darker, the user avatar is eerily still, like a slasher villain waiting to strike. There's no goofy setup, no usual puns or wacky AI civilians, just tension, thick, unshakable dread. And then the game begins, and immediately we know Enzo is out of his depth. The rules are unfamiliar, the user isn't just trying to win, it's trying to kill. Enzo's blaster malfunctions, Andrela's instincts are dulled, every plan they make fails. It's like the game is alive and it wants them to suffer. And the worst part, Enzo knows it. You can see the fear in his eyes. His confident guardian persona starts to crack in real time. His voice rises in panic. He begs the system to respond. He orders Andre La to retreat. He pleads for Frisket to stay behind, but nothing works. The user keeps advancing, cold, relentless, silent, and then it happens. The moment that changed everything. The user corners him. Andre lies wounded. Frisket disappears in a blur of static. Enzo raises his weapon for one last desperate shot, and it fails. The screen glitches. There's a horrifying sound like the crunch of corrupted code, and silence. No explosions, no dramatic farewell, no final words, just white noise. And when the game cue lifts, they're gone. No cheers, no return to mainframe, just a wreckage of failure. The series doesn't cut to a hopeful teaser. It doesn't cut to Bob swooping in to save the day. It sits in that quiet, broken space, daring you to ask the question, did they just kill the main character? For the first time ever, a Saturday morning cartoon let the kid fail. Not mess up and learn a lesson, not fail and get another try, but lose entirely, permanently, violently. And for kids watching at home, many of whom saw themselves in Enzo, it was like watching your childhood die on screen. No reset, no fix, just emptiness. But the show didn't stop there, because when Enzo finally returns episodes later, he's no longer the boy you remember. What happens when your childhood hero comes back and he's angry, scarred, and no longer wants to be saved?
I don't like binomes who threaten my friends.
When Enzo finally reappears several episodes later, he's not Enzo anymore. He's bigger, bulkier, wearing a trench coat, armed with a gun the size of his arm. He's got facial hair, a cybernetic targeting lens, and a deep gravel-throated voice. His green cap is gone, his innocence is gone, his smile is gone. He now goes by one name, Matrix. And the first time he speaks, it's not to say hello, it's to threaten someone. The transformation is horrifying, not just because he's older, but because of how he's older. You can feel that this isn't a natural evolution. It's not a coming-of-age arc, it's trauma. Matrix is what happens when a child fails and has to grow up inside his own guilt. For cycles, ReBoot's version of years, Matrix has been bouncing across the net, lost in random systems, battling deadly game cubes just to survive. He never made it home. He never found Bob. He never got closure. So he hardened. The boy who once shouted alphanumeric now scowls through battles and answers questions with loaded silence. He doesn't just want to beat the game anymore. He wants to punish them. Every time the user drops a GameCube, Matrix doesn't see a challenge. He sees a chance to get revenge. And when he loses control, he snaps. There's a terrifying moment when Matrix almost kills an innocent sprite, just for resembling someone from his past. His gun trembles in his hand, his jaw clenches. You can see the battle between what little humanity he has left and the beast he has become. Andre La, now his partner, is the only one who can pull him back from the edge. But even she seems afraid of him sometimes. Matrix is haunted, and not by ghosts, by himself. He talks about Enzo like he's a different person, like the boy he used to be died in that game, and the man that replaced him is just trying to keep breathing. It's the most raw, unfiltered depiction of post-traumatic stress ever shown in a kid's cartoon, and it's not subtle. He flinches when people say Guardian. He freezes when a GameCube descends. He lashes out at allies. He blames himself for everything. And worse, he's convinced he doesn't deserve to go home. This is no longer a redemption story. It's a survival story, one where the hero isn't trying to win. He's just trying not to completely fall apart. Matrix walks through the digital universe like a ghost in his own body, hunted by his past, shaped by his failure, and bound by a single mission: make it right or die trying. But the next time a GameCube drops, we find out just how much darkness he's still carrying inside.
Close the rift! Close it!
Your wish is my command.
What if the episode that scarred you wasn't a mistake, but a message? Let's be honest. Game Over wasn't just unusual for a kids show. It was completely inappropriate by 1990s Saturday morning standards. And yet, it aired, unedited, unapologetically. This was a time when TV networks freaked out when characters saying shut up, when violence had to be followed by slapstick, when death was something reserved for villains and even they came back wearing bandages. But ReBoot aired an episode where a child takes on the burden of a fallen mentor, fails in real time while crying in fear, vanishes from existence in a glitch of static, and returns later as a bitter, emotionally broken, PTSD-riddled anti-hero with a gun. How the hell did that get through standards and practices? The answer? Because no one expected it. The show had lulled the censors, parents, and viewers into thinking it was just another gimmicky computer-themed cartoon. But behind the scenes, the creators, Gavin Blair, Ian Pearson, and the team at Mainframe Entertainment were pushing for something way deeper. They knew they had something special. They were tired of dumbing things down. They believed kids could handle more, that they should be shown the consequences of failure, of grief, of pain, and with Game Over, they took that chance. The backlash was immediate. TV stations received complaints. Parents wrote letters saying their kids were crying after the episode, that they didn't understand why the hero was gone, that the tone had become dangerous. Some broadcasters debated pulling reruns. Several stations aired the rest of the season, but out of order, or delayed airing follow-up episodes entirely. Viewers were left confused, traumatized, needing answers they wouldn't get for weeks. Kids were terrified. Fan forums from the early 2000s are full of confessions like, "I legit thought Enzo died and that show was over. I cried for hours. No cartoon ever made me feel like that before. I had nightmares about the game cubes dropping." It didn't just cross the line. It erased the line completely and said, "Let's see what happens now." But perhaps the most shocking part? They meant to do it. The writers wanted this moment to hurt. They wanted kids to grow up, not just laugh. They wanted Game Over to haunt you, and it did. Because for the first time ever, we weren't just watching a cartoon, we were watching the consequences of real emotional trauma, mirrored through a digital avatar we'd grown up with. It challenged the very definition of what kids' show could be. And for better or for worse, it set the tone for everything that came after. Because the next villain we were about to face wasn't a virus of a game, it was us.
Bob, this is random! Mainframe's gone totally haywire!
What if the real villain of ReBoot wasn't Megabyte or Hexadecimal, but you? Let's talk about the most terrifying concept ReBoot ever introduced, and barely anyone noticed at first: the user. At first glance, the user is just a faceless force, a gamer from the real world dropping game cubes into Mainframe to play out rounds of first-person shooters, racing, or medieval fantasy brawls. The characters inside, NPCs, just data, nothing real. Except in ReBoot, the NPCs are conscious. They feel pain, they scream, they beg, they suffer when the user wins. Because in ReBoot lore, when the user wins a game, the area where the game cube dropped is destroyed. Sometimes it's wiped clean. Sometimes it's corrupted. People vanish, buildings collapse, code melts into nothing. So now imagine this. Every time you played a video game as a kid and won, you unknowingly murdered an entire block of sentient digital life. Suddenly, it's not so fun anymore, is it? And this is where ReBoot goes full existential horror. Because what's more terrifying than a villain you can fight? A villain who doesn't even know you exist. One who obliterates your world for fun without ever thinking about the consequences. To the characters in the show, the user is an unstoppable god, a monster in the sky, a being that cannot be reasoned with or defeated. Sound familiar? It's Lovecraftian, it's biblical, it's horrifying, and Enzo, he took it personally. Because when he lost that game in Game Over, he wasn't defeated by a virus, he wasn't beaten by a Megabyte, he was beaten by the user, by us. The implication is earth-shattering. Enzo didn't just fail as a guardian, he was outmatched by a being with infinite lives, cheat codes, and zero empathy, someone who never even knew what they'd done. When Matrix finally reemerges, the pain becomes fuel. He stops trying to be a hero, he starts chasing revenge. He talks about the user like a curse. He enters games not to win, but to break them, to destroy everything inside, to flip the script. Matrix is no longer fighting evil, he's fighting God. And there's one moment, burned into fans' memories, where Matrix enters a game, stares down the digital representation of the user, and says, "Not this time." He raises his gun, his hand shakes, his voice trembling, because this isn't about survival anymore. It's about justice, or maybe vengeance. And ReBoot doesn't flinch. It lets that moment sit. It wants you to feel uncomfortable. because the show is asking something no cartoon had ever asked before. What if you're the bad guy? What if the very act of playing the game made you the monster? But the horror doesn't stop there, because while the user may be an invisible threat from above, the damage they caused was very, very real. What if the emotional damage from one game never healed and turned your favorite character into a weapon? Why did this episode haunt kids for decades after it aired? Years later, fans still talk about it. Forum threads, Reddit posts, YouTube comments, people remember where they were when they saw Game Over. Some say it was the first time they cried watching a cartoon. Others said it made them anxious every time a GameCube dropped afterward, because once the show proved it could do this, nothing felt the same anymore. Even today, it holds up. The pacing, the music, the dread, the silence after Enzo disappears. It wasn't just a twist. It was a turning point for the character, the show, and an entire generation of viewers who suddenly realized cartoons could hurt.
Hey, take it easy. We can do this the hard way. Gun targeting.
So there you have it, the reboot episode that left a mark on everyone who saw it. Game Over didn't just change the story, it changed us. We went from laughing at goofy viruses to staring into the eyes of a boy who lost everything and came back angry. Let me know in the comments. Did you watch the episode when it aired? Did it mess you up too? And if you want to rewatch it, trust me, you need to see it with adult eyes. The link to the DVD is in the description. Thanks for watching. And remember, not every game ends with a reset. Sometimes it just ends. See you next time.